Welcome back to another Outlook VBA tutorial video. So in today's video, we're going to cover an interesting topic. It's actually a funny topic because this came from, so one of my friends, there was one day I think he had lost like a bunch of files and, it looked like he pretty much didn't have them and all this kind of fun stuff, right? And so he, for the most part, he actually had a lot of the files. The problem was they were all like in emails he had sent like over the last like 3 months, right? And so he's like, hey, is there a way where I can like download all my attachments across all of my emails and all of my folders that like match a certain criteria? And I said, well, I don't think there's like a user interface component where you can do that. I said, but you might be able to do it using VBA. He's like, well, I don't know VBA. I said, oh. He's like, could you, write some code for me? I said, no. I said, sure, why not? So, because I thought it was a nice challenge, I was like, oh, maybe I'll try out and see what happens. So it is possible. You can do it. Gotta be a little bit careful though. It's the only thing. When you're working across so many folders, the likelihood that you're going to encounter a wide variety of objects is pretty much guaranteed, because most people have hundreds of emails and hundreds of items inside their folders. And from the VBA object model perspective, you have to be very careful sometimes about how you write your code, because what can happen is if you write your code too general, certain objects won't have certain properties and methods, but you won't necessarily know that until you're looping through the actual items in that folder. To give you an example, think about, journal items and mail items and, calendar items. Each one of those kind of have their own little unique properties and methods. There's some, common ones like a name usually, but even names sometimes can be very, very different. And sometimes it will be there and sometimes it won't be there. And so part of it is when you write your code, you have to think, what path am I taking and what's the ultimate goal? So in this tutorial, I'll kind of walk through that process with you, but be very careful when you start working across so many folders, because you need to be very explicit about what you're planning to do with what object, when otherwise your code could very easily break. One way to fix this is you make sure you do the option explicit in the beginning. You want to make sure you declare all your variables in this one, or else you will hate yourself, I can guarantee you. So we're going to create a new subroutine. There's actually going to be two subroutines in this particular video. One is going to be our main one that will recall our other one. Now this one will actually use recursion. Well, not this main one, but the one that we're going to define after this one will use recursion to make it where we can loop through each particular variable, or sorry, not variable, folder. But before we do that, we need to kind of set up our main function. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to declare our variables. I know our fun part that I know everybody loves doing. I know I like doing it. It's kind of funny. I feel like today is like the first day in a while I can actually talk and not cough, which is great. Last couple of days, like, it's weird. During the morning, no problem. Afternoon, no problem. 6:30 rolls around and I'll cough like every 30 minutes. And I'm like, why? And then one of my clients, he's like, well, you should do garlic. And I said, garlic? I said, why would I use garlic? No joke. It worked. I couldn't believe it. Or it could be placebo. I don't know. Okay, so the first thing we're going to be doing is we are going to be declaring a couple variables. One is for a folder object. Obviously, we're going to be looping through a bunch of folders. And so we want to make sure we have a folder object that we can easily reference. One will be a namespace. So the namespace will be basically the actual, how do they describe it? The namespace is such an abstract object to me, but basically it's representing like kind of like the Outlook application, but like the server in a sense. Like that's the kind of the way you guess you want to think about it. Additionally, we will be using a non-standard object, and that will be file system object. This will be a new file system object. Now, you do need to enable this reference. So if you go up to the toolbar up here, go to Tools, down to References, little window pops up. You want to make sure you have the Microsoft Scripting Runtime library enabled. So if you scroll down all the way to M, you will see Microsoft, and it's going to be somewhere right around here. So just make sure you enable it. Enabling means you just put a check in that box. Once you have a check, you press OK, you're good to go. That file system object is going to be able to create a new folder for us. There's other ways to it. Personally, I just like using the file system object. Okay, and then we're going to also do an OLOOK save folder path. And then this will be a string. We're going to define that path, define the save folder path. And then from here, save folder path equals, we're going to do environment. We're going to do home path. This basically just makes sure we have the user's name, the user ID in it. So when we're building the full path. And then you need to specify where you want this folder to be. In this case, I want it to be in my desktop. My desktop is currently linked with my OneDrive. So I'm going to say OneDrive, desktop, and then I'm going to say Outlook, backup. And then you're good to go. Because I'm OCD, I'm going to put a plus. Then from here, check if the folder exists. If it doesn't, create it. Obviously, we're going to be saving things to it. We want to make sure it's created before we start saving attachments to it. So we're going to say if not, file system object, folder exist, and then it's going to be Outlook, save folder path, and then here it's going to be folder spec. Folder specification. Perfect. And if, sorry, I like doing named arguments. And then from here, what we want to do is create the folder. So we're going to do file, system object, and then create folder. And then it's going to be the path for where we want to create that folder. And that's really just the Outlook save folder path, just like that. Okay, so that creates the folder. That's basically our setup. Now we can start working with some of the more Outlook specific objects. Next one will be grab the namespace. Sets OLOOK namespace equal to application. And then there is a get namespace, and then it's MAPI. It's always the same. And then from here, we're now going to loop through each folder in the namespace. So we're going to say for Outlook folder in OLOOK namespace, there is a folders collection, which represents all of the folders in that namespace. And then we're going to do next. What do we want to do with each folder? Well, call the process current folder subroutine. So we're going to do call process current folder, and then we're going to do Outlook folder. All right, so that's that. This is our main function. This is going to call a recursive function. So now we're going to define our recursive function. From here, we're going to call process, process current folder. This will have one argument. It will be by value, and then we'll call it the parent folder. And then this will just be a regular folder object, just like that. And then again, declare our variables. So we're going to say dim the current folder as a folder. This will make more sense when we actually get to the recursion part. However, at this point, we're now going to start declaring some item specific objects. We're going to have a folder item. I'm going to be very broad, and I'm just going to say it's an object. when you're looping through a folder, there's a very good likelihood you will be encountering many different many different item types. You want to start prod and then in your code, handle each object in a very specific manner when necessary. So again, kind of to reiterate, start broad, then go more specific once you've defined the type. Then we're going to have an Outlook mail item. This obviously will represent a email basically. We will also have an attachment. This will be an attachment object. We're going to have a couple normal just string data types. One will be something called a display name. This is the actual display name of the attachment. And then we'll have an Outlook save folder path. Now this one is almost identical to this one. Almost identical. Literally all I do though is I put a little / on it and that's it. Super simple. Okay. Then from here, process each process each item in the folder. So loop through each item in the folder. So we're going to say for each Outlook folder item in the parent folder, there is an items collection. This is all the items, every single one, not just email items. So what we need to do is my script only will work with mail items. So I need to check the type of the item that I'm currently on. So check to see if the item we are currently on in the loop is a mail item. So we're going to say if look mail item, sorry, not look folder item is Outlook, and then it's going to be, it's type of. So type of Outlook folder is, and then it's going to be Outlook. And if it's a mail item object, then continue. So if the type of item that we're currently looking at is a mail item, then continue. Then from here, reassignment mainly for IntelliSense. And so we're going to say sets look mail item equals the look folder item. All this is doing is so now I get IntelliSense. Check to see if there are any attachments in the email. If so, continue. So if that mail item that I'm currently on, it's going to have an attachments collection, which represents all the attachment objects attached to it. That has a count property, which represents the number of items in that collection. If that count comes back greater than 0, guess what? Continue. Okay, so I have an attachment now. What do I want to do? First thing I want to do is print the attachment type. So we're going to say debug print attachment type is, and then we're going to say plus convert to string look attachment type. Okay. I think from here I'm gonna, oh, that's right, the sad news I have to deliver today. Horrible news. All right, so an attachment object has a type property. The type property returns the look attachment type constant, indicating the type of the specified object. It's read-only, so you can't write to it. There are 4 possible values. The first one you can pretty much always disregard. It's no longer supported. It's for earlier versions of 2007. Really, it's basically look by value, just the earlier version one. Look by value means it's an attached copy of the original file. So sometimes you attach the original file to the email. That would be the ones we care about. Sometimes it's an embedded item. So that could be like a file message format, and it's a copy of the original message. And then sometimes we also embed OLE documents inside to our particular email. So that's like me going here and saying, okay, hey, I want to, attach, insert an object. Where do they have them? You can do like an attachment, something like that, right? So that's the idea behind the OLE one. So really all we care about is the by value one. So that's one we're going to be working with. On to the sad news. I think my espresso machine is on its last legs. It served me for 2 years and it's done a good job and it's lived a good life, but I put it through hell. I'll be honest. I use that thing like there's no tomorrow. But I also recognize that I cheaped out when I got my first one. So normally how I purchase things is the first time I'll buy it, I cheap out because I don't know if I'm actually committed to the item. Because, I want to make sure I'm committed to the item before I start investing, any type of amount of money into it. So I have a coffee addiction. I'll be the first one to say it. So now that I've gotten to this point, I am now looking at new ones. But they're expensive. I mean, this is like $900. But the cool thing is it has a bean grinder in it. So I'm really excited about that part because I thought that was cool. It's got some interesting colors. I don't like Cecil. Is that, no, Royal Champagne. What the hell does that even mean? Regardless, I was just kind of blown away of how like expensive this stuff can be. But like even the cheaper ones, like if you get the cheaper ones, it doesn't have the little bean grinder. And I want the bean grinder. So I'll update you once I decide a purchase decision. But if you have any suggestions, I'm all open to hearing them. So that's the sad news, though. It's a sad day. All right, so from here, if it's an attached file, continue. So we're going to say if the OLOOK attachment.type equals 1, then continue, and if. Okay, so if it's an attached file, continue. What do we want to do? Well, first, just print out some info about the attachment. So this is, you obviously don't have to put this in here, but sometimes, it's kind of nice to see what your code is generating. So for example, I might want the name. We'll say OLOOK attachment. Display name. And then really from here, I'm just kind of like changing this a few times. So the next one will be the mail item name. Now, because we wrote our code in such a way, we can now easily get that stuff. So that does pay its little dividends down the road, at least in my opinion. Parent folder name. Now this one, which should just be our parent folder. And then our count. This one's pretty straightforward. We're going to do convert to string. OLOOK mail. And then attachments count. So that just prints out some information, nothing super fancy. I do want to define a new variable called attachment display name. This will represent my attachment display name. So basically the name of the file. And then I'm going to build in some logic. It's not perfect logic, and it definitely, if you're not careful, it can fail. So what I'm going to do is very simple. I'm going to say, okay, if the attachment display name, so if the file name that I'm currently on is has XLS in it, and if that returns true, then do something. Also, if there is the attachment display name has PPT in it, then that's also a good thing too. So then do something, and if. all this does is it helps you kind of filter. So you don't have to add this portion in here, but if you want it to add it, just keep in mind what it's doing is it's filtering the files that you would actually be saving to that location. So in this case, what I'm saying is if it's an Excel file, if it's a PowerPoint file, I want to save those ones to our particular desktop. Otherwise, I don't. Now, this isn't a fail-safe. It still can cause issues because, for example, if it isn't a name, and like I say, XLS, in my Word document, it's very possible that then it would save that Word document. So I'll probably refine this a little bit before I put it on GitHub, but just keep in mind it is a methodology to at least filter your attachment types, but it's not fail-safe. There's going to be possible values that could fall through. So filter the attachments so that we only save the PowerPoint and Excel documents. Okay, save to the desktop. And so we're going to say, oh, look, attachment, save as file. And then we're going to have a path, which will be the look save folder path plus the attachment display name. So now you have a full file path. And then that's pretty much it for that portion. Now there's a second portion that's going to come basically after this loop. So here, process the subfolders recursively. If the parent folder .folders.count is greater than 0, then do something. So all I'm saying is, if the folder that I'm currently on, if it has a folders collection that has a count greater than 0, I want you to loop through each one of those folders and then do exactly what I was doing right up here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna say loop through each of the subfolders in the parent folder for each. And then in this one, I'm going to do this one up here. So for each current folder, I'm going to rename this because I think there's a better way of renaming that. Let's call it subfolder. Subfolder might be a little misleading, but let's just assume that everything that's not our main inbox isn't our subfolder or isn't our parent folder. So for each subfolder in the parent folder .folders, next. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, okay, call our process current folder routine again. Call process current folder, but now pass through the subfolder. So the idea behind recursion is that you call a function. You basically call a function within itself. So the idea behind it is you're trying to take this more complex problem and break it down to its simplest parts. And so the way you've defined your kind of subroutine is that it can handle anything that's a folder and basically the attachments in those folders. So it's saying, hey, if you have a folder, then what I want you to do is call yourself again and then do that routine again that you were doing up here. And then again, for that subfolder, I want you to do it again and again until you basically run out of folders to basically loop through. So the idea is that you call yourself again and you apply the same operations to the items that you want to perform those operations on. Recursion can be a little confusing at first. I remember when I first learned the idea of recursion, I was lost for like weeks. I got it once I realized there were a couple of problems where recursion just made it a lot easier to do it. I think this is a perfect one because Outlook folders come in very nested structures. I'm horrible at that in the sense of I nest everything. So you just want to keep in mind, like, I think recursion is beautifully used in this solution because it's trying to take this idea of like, well, I don't know how nested your inboxes are, so I need to be able to write my code concisely, but still make it flexible enough to where it can handle a very nested structure. So that's basically the idea behind it. So what we're going to do is we're going to run this. Keep in mind, it can take a minute or two to run. And I don't have that many emails in my inboxes. I know some people have tens of thousands of emails. So just keep that in mind. I'm not going to say this is going to necessarily work entirely in those situations. You can make this more specific, and I will have an example where if you want to loop through just a specific folder, not every one, it's very much possible to do that. This is going to do everything, but if you are one of those individuals who has like 20,000 emails, be patient, and maybe start with a couple separate folders first, just to kind of get the kinks worked out. Let's run it. Not that one. So you got a call from this main one. What did I not? Did I not put my loop for the attachments? Nope. Kind of pointless, but I missed a pretty big glaring issue. We need to loop through each attachment. So, oh look, mail, item, attachments. It's the problem when I was doing so many loops. Loop through each attachment in the email. So you can see it's going through and it's doing all that fun stuff. And it's got a lot. And you'll see in a sec. As it goes and it goes and it goes and it goes. And it goes. See, that's what I'm talking about. Like, I don't have that many emails, and I'm like, and it still takes a few seconds to run on my end. So I'm like, I know if it's taking a little bit on my end, I know for a fact there are going to be a bunch of you who you will be sitting for a very long time. So as you can tell, I now have every single attachment that I could possibly ever want. And then PowerPoints, it's a whole bunch of stuff, but a very useful subroutine. If you ever get into that situation where you're like paranoid to death because you lost something and you need to download everything, then this subroutine will obviously help you out, and then you can make it as specific or broad as you want. You can say, hey, I only want certain file types, or you can say, hey, no, I want everything. Give me every little thing in there. You might be waiting for a little bit and you might have a ton of files, but regardless, I think you will like it. But yeah, very useful. So at this point, if you have any questions, by all means, put them down in the comments below. I know obviously there might have been some confusion here with the recursion, but hopefully I tried to do my best to explain it. However, hopefully you got a little bit more experience under your belt. But yeah, if you have any questions, by all means, put them down in the comments below. Otherwise, in our next VBA video, we will be covering a very interesting topic. This actually, this was a funny one, to be honest, because somebody had asked a question on this one. oh no, I put it back here. They had asked about a, what is the word? Media format objects. They were talking about videos and PowerPoints. And so I said, that's an interesting topic. I said, I've never worked with them in VBA. So I said, I honestly, like, I don't know what that would look like. There's a lot you can do with them, like a lot. And so I'm going to keep exploring this topic, but we will be covering how to work with video files in PowerPoint VBA, and then we will move on to audio files. So I'm really excited to do this one. Obviously, this is a great opportunity to just put more videos out there. Look at that. You already have some in here. Well, this one's not uploaded yet, so you can't see it. But I think that's kind of neat. And then we'll see about linking them and stuff like that. So that's kind of neat. Additionally, I do have a topic for more finance-oriented people. So, I kind of think back to when I was graduating college, however long ago that was. But initially I was going to go into finance. I did go into finance, so I can't say I didn't go into finance, but I was very much going to go into finance. And when I was younger, back in my young days, I was trying to get in the whole investment banking routine, just like all my other friends. And so there was like a lot of stuff that I read up about when it came to doing things like, we had to do Excel modeling, color coding and all that kind of fun stuff. And so I've just been kind of exploring topics that I thought would have been nice to know, going into the finance realm, having a decent understanding of certain topics, especially from the VBA perspective. So I do want to share some of those with people. Ideally, this is also going to be kicking off the JavaScript Excel add-in. So I am pleased to say that we officially have a full end-to-end JavaScript Excel add-in, and I will be showing you how to build it end-to-end. And I'm basically adding in all the things I wish were in Excel. By far, probably one of the most interesting functions that I wish and I pray one day they will give it to me, but I know they probably won't. I'm going to be talking about the unpivot function. So this is an interesting one. So I created a function in Excel a few months ago because I hate when people give me data like this, right? Like, this is not normalized. This drives me crazy. So I created a function in Excel that will unpivot this data. And so you can do, and I actually have it. And so I like this one because I think if I can type, this will take a range of cells. So you can just specify your header cells, your row cells. And then you can specify this one. And then it will unpivot your entire range of cells. So ideally, now you don't have to open up Power Query and do stuff like that. So that was a cool one. I also will be doing that one in the JavaScript add-in. And then I'm going to be doing a split string function. So basically split by delimiter. So for whatever reason, they still do not have this one. And I don't know why. But where you have one where you have like a string and there might be like commas and you have to always do text to columns. I said, I want a function. We have the spill functionality. Just give us a function. So I'm going to be building that one. Additionally, it's probably too early to tell, but there might, I'm not going to go crazy yet. I might be seeing about doing kind of a more intense, more extravagant candlestick chart inside of Excel using the JavaScript API. That's still very far off, so I really don't know if I'm going to have that one ready. But there is a plan to have that. But yeah, so those are kind of some things I think for the JavaScript. With the finance one, obviously we'll be covering our unpivot function. And then I'll also be going over I would say just common things I think it would have been nice to know when it comes to formatting, input cells, link to worksheet, formula highlight, highlighting a range of cells. I also have to build one in here for doing a summary on circular references. I know that was something that drove me crazy. God, I hated circular references. But it's supposed to basically auto-generate a report that will tell you each cell inside of your workbook that has a, what is the word? Circular reference. So there's going to be some of that. And then we might talk about just, more finance specific questions. Functions and, stuff like that. Things that I think might be useful, if you're obviously doing some interesting stuff. But yeah, that's some stuff coming up, I think, in the more VBA JavaScript realm. So hopefully you guys will find those topics useful. I thought the unpivot function, that one to me was like, when I finally got that one working, I was like, God, I have it. I'm trying to make it multi-dimensional though. So I wanted to work with multiple column headers. So yeah, thank you again for watching, everybody. We'll see you in the next videos.